Hello everyone, it's January 7th, 2026, and welcome to my mock draft version 2.0 for the upcoming 2026 NFL Draft. My name is Simon Erickson. You can see all of our must-watch content for the upcoming draft in the NFL right here at NFL Draft 2026 on YouTube. Side note that my day job is running an investing company called 7investing.com. There's a lot of similarities between investing in the stock market and investing in your future as a football team. This is my other passion in life. It's my side gig, so to speak. I really enjoy these, but check out 7 Investing if you'd like more information about investing in the stock market. Let's jump right into it though. This is version 2.0 of my mock draft. The first one that I did right at the end of 2025. It was the end of week 17, right before the new year started. We've had a lot that have happened in the week and a half since then. I think it's the right time to update the mock draft and all the expectations that I have, with the most important expectation coming right here at the top, which is that I am not expecting Dante Moore to enter the draft portal this year. I think he's going back. I think he's going back to Oregon. I do not think he's going to declare for the 2026 draft. This is a hot take that's going to change everything. If Dante declares, he's almost certainly going to be off the board within the first few picks. In this mock draft, we have Dante and also Ty Simpson both going back to school for another year. And that's going to have an impact on a lot of the ultimate decisions that teams make here in the first round. So putting that disclaimer right up there, right up in front, that we have Dante Moore going back to school. He is not eligible for this 2026 draft. I think he's going to come out in 2027 after one more year at school. So with the first pick of the 2026 NFL draft, I have the Las Vegas Raiders drafting Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback out of Indiana. Anyone who's watched Mendoza and Indiana as a whole in the college football playoff has been just so impressed with how he places the ball, with the poise that he has, with the way that he adapts to other teams and their schemes, and just the way that he carries himself and his entire team, and his teammates love him. And Curt Cincinnati loves him. You know, the coach loves him. This is a high IQ football player who's also got pretty good physical tools to work with. You know, he's tall, 6'5", has got a great arm. Not an ideal or elite arm, but a very good arm for downfield passes. And he really understands the game quite well. He can read defensive schemes. He can know what's coming at him for every single play. And that's kind of the high IQ quarterback that I think that Tom Brady wants as the Raiders start rebuilding this franchise. Of course, you saw Pete Carroll's out, just got fired after his first year at the Raiders head coach. They're going to want to rebuild from the start. What better player than Fernando Mendoza to build around? And we know that the Raiders have got other needs on this roster. We know they're going to need to work on the offensive line. They're going to have to give Mendoza someone to throw to, somebody in the skill positions other than just Ashton Jeanty and Brock Bowers. Probably going to need to bring in a wide receiver for this team. But again, the Raiders have also got $121 million of cap space as of right now. That obviously changes. You're going to be re-signing some of your veterans and doing extensions for your existing team that you have. But they've got enough to make a splash out there for veterans in those skilled positions. Mendoza goes number 1 to the Las Vegas Raiders in the 2026 NFL Draft. With the second pick in the NFL Draft of 2026, I have the New York Jets selecting Arvell Reese, the edge and linebacker hybrid out of Ohio State. Again, no Dante Moore in this draft. We're assuming that he goes back to school. He would naturally be the fit for the Jets here at number 2. But if you can't get Dante, who do you go with? At number 2, that's of course a huge positional value need. When you're right there at the top of the draft board, you can't draft somebody like a safety. You can't draft somebody like a running back. I mean, you can address some of those positions by finding the best 10 players in the league and actually paying them a comparable salary as you would for a rookie on the collective bargaining agreement rookie contracts. It's pretty much set in stone, mostly fixed for people that are entering the NFL in their first year. I think that Arvell Reese paired with Aaron Glenn is going to be a good combination. The Jets had a lot of defensive struggles this year. Of course, no surprise when you trade away Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, you're left with not a lot of talent on that defensive side of the ball. And even though I think that they traded those players to begin the offensive rebuild, if you're not able to get Fernando Mendoza and you're not able to get Dante Moore at that top pick, what do? You know, you want to draft the QB of the future. You want to have your franchise guy coming in, but they're not on the board. I think the natural fit here is to pick the best player that is available, and that's Arvell Reese. And I think that Aaron Glenn, who was a defensive back for the Jets years ago, is going to see his skill set that he's got, the ability that he has to play an off-ball linebacker, but also kind of move him to the edge, but recognize he's got some unique physical skills that a defensive-minded coach like Glenn, or at least Glenn wants to be, can take advantage of. So I think they're going to love him. I think that he's going to be a versatile player. He's going to line up in a bunch of different parts of the scheme for the Jets. This is kind of another team that's rebuilding right now. I think that in the interim here, because Justin Fields is certainly not an option for them anymore at quarterback, I think they're going to go out there and try to acquire a veteran in the QB market. Kyler Murray has got 2 years left on his contract, probably going to be making about $50 million a year. At least in the cap space there. And I think that that's something that the Jets can afford to pay. They've got $100 million in cap space right now as of the end of the year. I think bidding on somebody like Murray, or if they didn't want Murray, maybe go after a Malik Willis or a Marcus Mariota. Somebody in that kind of $30 to $35 million range would be a good bridge quarterback option as the Jets begin their rebuild. So number 2, I have the Jets going with Arvell Reese, the edge rusher and linebacker hybrid coming out of Ohio State. With the 3rd pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Arizona Cardinals selecting Ruben Bain Jr., the edge rusher out of Miami. Anyone who's watched Ruben Bain Jr. knows this guy is unblockable. I mean, he is a wrecking ball of the defensive front throughout all of the entire college football season. Really, in fact, through all of his college career, he was just very, very hard to block. Big power rusher, 280 pounds. Everyone always points out the short arms. It really hasn't hindered him at all in college. He just finds a way to line up and down the defensive line and put pressure on the quarterback. 20% plus pass rush win rate. This guy is, like I said, the wrecking ball of the defensive line. The Cardinals are going to love that. The Cardinals like safe picks in the draft. They like to draft either on either side of the trenches. Right, you had Paris Johnson a couple of years ago. They drafted as a left tackle. A lot of people are sliding them into a right tackle this year. They would say, hey, Spencer Fano makes a lot of sense at a right tackle. Maybe Francis Mauigoa from Miami would make a lot of sense. I think that there's a good consideration for that. But I also think that if you're drafting there at number 3, that's kind of early for an offensive tackle, especially in this year's tackle class where there's not that elite talent like a Joe Alt was last year, somebody of that caliber. I think that the Cardinals are probably going to really love Bain. Line him up on the scheme. They run a 4-3. He's a power rusher. He would fit right in there with some of the other draft picks and some of the other players that they have on that defensive line. I think that he's the guy they're going to go for. And edge is a player you want to draft at number 3 there too, just because of the positional value of it too. So all of those considered, maybe the Cardinals are going to go after kind of a veteran right tackle. Braden Smith will be available, as one option for them. There's generally not a whole lot of tackle options that are out there on the free agent market. If you're a smart NFL team, you want to lock down your talented tackles into long-term contracts and extensions with them. But I just don't see the Cardinals. If you got the number 3 pick, you go after an edge, you play somebody in the market that's a veteran, at least for the next year or two, and maybe next year if you're still at the top of the board, you're going to go after that as well. So again, I think that the Cardinals are going to trade Kyler Murray, get what they can, maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick for him here in the offseason, bring in a bridge quarterback in the interim, and then take Ruben Bain out of Miami, the edge rusher, with that number 3 pick. With the number 4 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Tennessee Titans drafting David Bailey, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Did you guys watch this guy? Did you see Texas Tech playing against Oregon in the playoffs? I mean, the guy is one of the most productive edge rushers. David Bailey is one of the most productive edge rushers you'll ever see. I mean, he just goes after the quarterback every single play, right? It's almost crazy to think what he could do and the havoc that he could wreak on the Titans front line there. Put him right next to Simmons, kind of that defensive, tackle spot. They got some guys that can fill the run stuffing gaps in the middle. I think they want to put an edge on the outside to put some more pressure on opposing quarterbacks out there. The Titans, a lot of mocks that I've seen have been going after a wide receiver. And it makes sense, right? You got Cam Ward. Seems like he's going to be the long-term answer, the franchise guy there, at least for several more years. You want to give him a weapon, right? People are always mocking Jordan Tyson or Carnell Tate to the Titans here as a wide receiver 1. That's too early, in my opinion, for the 4th pick. You could do that if you want to, if you're really, really set on those guys, but it still seems too early, considering there's a lot of depth in the wide receiver class this year later on. And I also think that, you've got the cap space. The Titans, as of the last look at the end of the year, had $115 million. in available cap space for 2026, I mean, that's more than enough money to go out there and get somebody like a Deebo Samuel, to get somebody like a George Pickens or even a Christian Kirk or somebody like that, maybe even a Brandon Ayuk, somebody to give a weapon for Cam Ward to throw to. But I think if you're sitting there at 4 and you've got Bailey right there looking at you, you go after him, right? The defense for the Titans is giving up over 28 points a game in 2025. That's a huge delta. That's a huge bar to ask Cam Ward, and even if you bring him in a wide receiver, it's going to be a long time, at least I think a couple of years, before the offense can even get anywhere near 28 points a game for the Titans. It's too much to ask for, and so I think you go after a defensive player, you try to bring down the points per game that your opponents are scoring, and then start rebuilding your offense over the next 2 or 3 years, bring in some veterans first and foremost. So with that 4th pick, I had the Tennessee Titans going with David Bailey, the edge rusher from Texas Tech. He's going to line up, the Titans tend to use a 4-3 front, at least for most of the packages they have on defense. I think he's going to be just fine on that, but can easily adapt to be an outside linebacker if you wanted to run a 3-4 as well. With the 5th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I had the New York Giants selecting Francis Mauigoa, the right tackle out of Miami. Again, this is a controversial pick, right? A lot of people are saying, the Giants are certainly going to go with the wide receiver here. You want to build around Jaxson Dart. I understand that perspective. I understand when you're seeing mocks going after Jordan Tyson and putting him here at the number 5 pick, which is still kind of early for a wide receiver, right? We saw Harrison go to the Cardinals kind of in this kind of range last year, but I still think that if you're the Giants and you want to build around Dart, knowing that he already took an injury this year, and you already lost Scatterbo from an injury this year too, you've got to solidify that right side of the line, right? Evan Neal didn't work out. We know that he's kind of in the history books for the Giants. He's not going to be an answer. He's going to be getting rid of the team here very soon. I want to lock them down with the franchise locked right tackle that not only you give the rookie contract to, but then somebody who's been dependable that you can re-sign for a second contract as well. And I think that New York's front office has got the commitment and the patience to make this move as well. I saw John Mara, come out there and say that he wants to have the continuity and stability to build the future of this franchise. And that's a different tone than I think that I anticipated the Giants to have. Shane had kind of been on the hot seat, for a while there, the general manager. I thought they were in win now mode in 2026, where if they didn't get a certain number of wins this next year, he was gone as GM, right? You already saw them fire Brian Dable. It seemed like it was just going to be a completely fresh start. But with Shane still keeping his job for next year, and then kind of the tone out of the front office and the ownership, I think they're going to be the responsible thing here and go after the offensive line to protect Jaxson Dart in year number 2. Wan'Dale Robinson also has done very well. He's a free agent at the end of the year, but I do think they're going to re-sign him past his rookie contract. He's shown a lot of promise as their wide receiver 2 that's paired up with Malik Neighbors. And I understand the intrigue of bringing in one of those elite wide receivers from this class. That would certainly be good, but there's a much, much bigger need. You have to rebuild the line. It has to start with the line first and foremost before you go after the skill positions. Otherwise, you turn to the Raiders, where Ashton Genty is not getting anywhere. And he's one of the elite skill players in the league right now, kind of stuck behind a Swiss cheese offensive line out there in Las Vegas. So I think the Giants here, they do the responsible thing. You go after a right tackle. You go after some veteran players in the skill positions in the offseason. And, Mauigoa has been phenomenal all year long, right? It's even more impressive in the last 2 games of the playoffs that Miami has only allowed 2 sacks apiece to the Texas A&M Aggies and then the Ohio State Buckeyes. Those are elite defensive edge rushers that you're going up against, and Maui has held down the fort against a high level of competition all year long. I think that's what you're going to need. Being in that NFC East, it's a tough division to fight out. You have to have a quarterback that's protected. So in the 5th pick, I have the New York Giants selecting Francis Mauigoa, the right tackle out of Miami. With the 6th pick in the NFL Draft of 2026, I had the Cleveland Browns selecting Spencer Fano, the right tackle out of Utah. Again, just another controversial pick. It seems like I see a lot of mocks that are saying, hey, go after the skill positions, go after the wide receivers. You need a playmaker in Cleveland, don't you? Need somebody for Shough to throw the ball to. Yes, you do. But more important is just the continuity of that front line that's protecting Shough in the pocket. Shedeur is not an extremely mobile quarterback. He wants to sit in the pocket and find his receiver and put the accuracy, put it on the money when he's throwing to his receivers out there. You see it time and time again. It's not in Colorado. You see the same thing now with Cleveland of what he wants to do. But they just don't have the offensive line to provide that for him yet. And furthermore, between the injuries and the free agents at the end of this year, and even some of the retirements that I think you're going to see with the Browns front line this year, you almost have to go out there and get a lineman that's going to produce Shedeur. Is number 6 too early to draft an lineman when there's offensive playmakers that are available in this space? No, I do not think it's too early. I think that this is the number one need for the team. Just like the Giants, you have to fix the line first before you can go after those skill positions. And I mean, the Browns was arguably the league worst offensive line all year. I think that there's a delta between CeCe Mauanoa and Fano at the very top of this draft class for offensive linemen, and then the others. We're going to talk about some of those other players here in a moment as we get into kind of the middle of the round where I see some more linemen coming off of the board. But I think that Fano is, with Mauanoa off the board, Cleveland's going to say, man, we can't wait till our second pick that's coming up here at the end of the round to wait for an offensive line. We got to go get our guy. We got to get Shedeur protected. Otherwise, it's just going to be another rehash of the exact same frustrations they saw in 2025, where he was taking sacks and getting hurried too much. You have a pocket passer that can be really good in this league. You got to give him a little bit more time. So I see the Cleveland Browns at number 6, going after Spencer Fano, the right tackle that's out there out of Utah. With the 7th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Washington Commanders selecting Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher out of Auburn. This guy is a beast, right? Falk is a high floor, high upside defensive lineman. And I say that because he's got the physical traits. I believe 285 pounds, 6'6". The physical traits that a lot of teams are going to be interested in. He just doesn't have the technique yet, right? He's still a raw talent out there, and you can coach that. If you've got the right team in place and the right defensive coaches to harness those kind of tools, you can do what Jacksonville did with, Trayvon Walker a couple years ago. People were kind of throwing a lot of shade at them for picking him so early in the draft, number 1 overall, right before Aiden Hutchinson. And they were like, wow, what are you guys doing? Hutchinson aside, because I think he still would have been a really, really good number 1 draft pick. But you can see now what the Jaguars have built with their defensive line, which is probably one of the 2 best defensive lines in the entire NFL right now, especially in stopping the run. It pays off over time when you've got good players with raw physical talents that are elite and the right size. You can kind of adapt them to your scheme that you're running. Keldrick Falk is going to fit that with the Commanders. And even though he wasn't super productive in college, I still think this is the right kind of player that Dan Quinn wants. Obviously, he's bringing in a new defensive coordinator this year, new offensive coordinator as well, but new defensive coordinator. So you're going to see some changes to the scheme that the Commanders are using. But I do think that more than anything, the Commanders need an edge rusher that's going to go after the quarterback. I think this is the right kind of player that they need. You've got a kind of this elderly, slow defensive team, right? They're over 30 years old. These guys are going right into geriatric care or the hospital, for injuries. You need to bring some youth into that defensive line. You got to put some heat on the opposing quarterbacks, especially in the NFC East. When you're up there against, Jaxson Dart and Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts. I mean, these guys, you can't give them time because they're going to burn you time and time again if you're giving them too much time in the pocket. And I think that this is the right pick then for the Commanders. I think Falk is, with the right kind of training, going to be the right pick here for the Commanders at number 7. And again, this is one of those players that I'm watching. I am influenced by Dante Moore not being available in this draft. And so that's going to give kind of the Commanders, David Bailey, I think, like I said, moved up the board to number 4 there to Tennessee. I think that's going to kind of nudge the Commanders as they're already seeing Arvell Reese off the board, Ruben Bain off the board, and then David Bailey off the board within the top 5 picks there. I think that's going to push them to address the edge rusher need sooner rather than later. And elsewhere outside of this, the Commanders have got a ton of cap space, over $128 million as of the end of 2025. I think you're going to go out there and bid on somebody like Brandon Ayuk, who played with Jaden Daniels previously in his college career, looking for a new home now that he's not working out in San Francisco. I think they're going to bring in a veteran running back. Somebody like a Najee Harris might make sense there. If not, some of the other veterans that are on the open market there. The Commanders' offense to me looks pretty good, other than Kingsbury not being the offensive coordinator anymore. I think they're going to go with the defensive pick here. So with number 7, I have the Washington Commanders taking Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher, the powerful edge rusher out of Auburn. They're in the 2026 NFL Draft. With the 8th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the New Orleans Saints, my own beloved New Orleans Saints, selecting Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. First of all, they should rename Ohio State to be Wide Receiver State or Wide Receiver University, because they just keep putting out productive wide receivers that go on to have success at the NFL level. One of which being Chris Olave, the wide receiver 1 primary target for New Orleans Saints, and he's worked out quite well. I love the idea of pairing him with another OSU alum here, with Carnell Tate, to succeed with Tyler Shough's development, right? Tyler Shough, a lot of people were throwing hate at this pick in the second round of last year. They're saying Shough is too early to go in the second round. He has silenced the critics and the naysayers, and the Saints have got him in a position to succeed if they can only give him another weapon this next year. I think that he's going to go on and develop and progress even further, right? Kellen Moore, great QB-friendly coach, comes from the Philadelphia Eagles, won a Super Bowl with them as offensive coordinator. He's going to see Tyler Shough developing. He's going to give him a second tool and a second reliable receiving option. Carnell Tate has been fantastic all year long. Not only good in man coverage, where he succeeds in catching contested catches. He's a big-bodied receiver, 6'3", somebody that can create separation, but also if you throw it just in his general direction, he's going to catch the pass. But he's also able to break down zones and see defensive schemes. I think that him plus Olave is going to be a great duo that the Saints would be putting on the field out there. I'm really excited to see where this would go. And so I think that Tate, would make a lot of sense in this pick. In previous drafts, I've mocked Mekhi Lemon to the Saints. I think that he would also fit in there as a speedy slot receiver, which would make a lot of sense. But I actually think the Saints might be a little bit surprised to even see Carnell Tate. They're available at number 8. We saw a lot of edge rushers and then the offensive linemen go at the beginning of the round there. I think if you're the Saints, you get the chance to draft Tate and pair him up with his OSU buddy, Chris Olave out there, figure out who's going to be in the slot and who's going to be on the boundary. Or maybe you put both of them out wide, however you look, how that configuration look. This is a quarterback that's shown a lot of poise in the pocket. The Saints' offensive line is still young, but is showing a lot of promise. And Tyler Shough certainly has done very, very well. I think it makes sense to continue to roll with building out the offensive pieces. And with number 8, I have the New Orleans Saints going with Carnell Tate, the wide receiver, the ex-receiver predominantly so far out of Ohio State. With the number 9 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame. This is the right piece for the Kansas City Chiefs. This is an offense that has had to change stylistically from years past. Patrick Mahomes loved to air the ball out. His talent was arm strength, and it was great in the heyday when he had Tyreek Hill to open up the field, and he just chunked it 40 yards downfield. Tyreek could beat whatever man was trying to cover him, and they'd score a ton of points. Not the case anymore. Defenses have gotten smart. They've adapted to the Chiefs' offense. I talked in my previous mock draft about the cover 2 that they're using. You put 2 safeties high, take away that deep ball threat, and now the Chiefs are kind of stuck having to rely more on the running game and the RPO game, the run pass option game. Mahomes, as such, is kind of having to dump off these shorter passes to his tight end, Travis Kelce. Who knows who the tight end is going to be next year? Or to his running backs. And the run game for the Chiefs right now has been completely ineffective, almost non-existent. Isaiah Pacheco, love the guy, great player, great competitor, has been injured and just really ineffective in the run game. Kareem Hunt, bulldozer, great if it's 4th and 1, or you're right there on the goal line, give it to Hunt, let him punch it into the end zone, but he's not going to be the playmaker that the Chiefs need for this offense. I think Jeremiah Love is. There's a guy like Saquon. He can break open out in the field and burn you for 40 or 50 yards. And he's very hard to catch. Great offensive playmaker. Has got a lot of potential to succeed, especially in the offense that the Chiefs are running right now. I love, at number 9, the Kansas City Chiefs taking Jeremiah Love, the running back that's out of Notre Dame. With the 10th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Cincinnati Bengals selecting Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. The Bengals have got a lot of defensive problems right now. And a lot of people are saying, just take Caleb Downs. He's going to be a good player. They need to rebuild the secondary. I understand that. I understand that logic and that rationale. And at 10, that's probably around the range where Caleb Downs is going to go anyway. Keep him in state, keep him in Ohio, makes sense to me. But it doesn't address the number 1 problem that the Bengals have right now, which is they are completely getting steamrolled by opposing rushing. attacks. Running backs are just running right over them, right? League worst, 156 yards per game that the Bengals are giving up right now. That's not even close. They're the worst in the league. You have to address that. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how many points Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow put up for your offense. If you're just getting blown up by opposing running backs or giving up, unnecessary yardage, just dumping off to tight ends right in the middle of the field. I mean, you have to put some heat right there in the middle of the defensive line on the running backs. They're just unnecessarily, like I said, getting 5, 6, 7 yards, even more than that sometimes. And so while I see the appeal of Caleb Downs here going to the Bengals, I don't think he's going to be the guy you want in there collapsing on the run or, tackling tight ends. He can do that. Downs is capable of doing that, but it's not his true talent, which would be roaming free in the secondary. And so I think that the Browns here, you're gonna go with Peter Woods. He's the right fit to collapse right there on the defensive line. Tackle the running backs that are right there between the tackles. In addition to that, he adds some juice to the pass attack too, right? I think that the Bengals are probably losing Trey Hendrickson, and who knows how Shamar Stewart's going to work out here at the end of the year. But with the number one need that it being of stopping the run, I think it makes total sense for at number 10, the Cincinnati Bengals, to select Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. With the number 11 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Miami Dolphins selecting Caleb Downs, the defensive back out of Ohio State. Primarily a safety. I'm going to call him a defensive back here, and I'll explain why in a moment. I think they're going to look at exactly what happened in Baltimore, right? So, first of all, the Miami secondary is a complete mess, and there's a rationale here to just go after the cornerback number 1 of the class. Probably Mansour Delane would be a natural fit here at CB1 for the Dolphins, but I also think they're going to look at what the Ravens did and how the Ravens reconfigured their own secondary, right? The Ravens already had Kyle Hamilton, which was a fantastic safety, kind of in the same build as Caleb Downs, that was back there, doing what he needed to do as a safety, collapsing on wide receivers that beat coverages, downfield, things like this. But then they went out and they drafted Malachi Starks, who could play that free safety role and allow Kyle Hamilton to be a much more versatile chess piece of the secondary. And what has he done for the Ravens this year? Well, he's transformed into one of the greatest defensive players of the entire league, right? He can offer run support if he needs to. He can do press coverage on wide receivers on the boundary if he needs to. He can operate in the box if he needed to. Wherever you need Kyle Hamilton, he can be kind of a transformer of a strong safety with a boundary corner with somebody who could even collapse on the run out there. I mean, he can play a lot of roles, and he's got a high enough football IQ to do that. Now, tell me that's not exactly what Caleb Downs would be best fit to do in the NFL as well. Don't make Caleb Downs be just a safety who's tackling wide receivers who break their coverages out there. Have him be somebody that contributes to the short passing game. He's going to anticipate plays, and he's going to blow them up before they happen. He's also going to be able to contribute against the run. Let Caleb Downs be Caleb Downs, the most talented defensive player in this draft. I think Miami is going to learn from what Baltimore did in years past, adapt that, put Downs right there with Minkah Fitzpatrick, who can roam free in the secondary, and let Downs be what he wants to be all over the defensive front that the Miami Dolphins are going to run. So again, Dolphins need a lot of help. Ever since losing Jalen Ramsey to the Steelers, just been getting burned by the pass all year. I think that's their number one issue to address. And I think if you couple Downs with Minkah Fitzpatrick in that secondary, that's a pretty deadly duo. I would love to see that happen in there in Miami. So with that 11th pick, I have the Miami Dolphins selecting Caleb Downs, the defensive back out of Ohio State. With the 12th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Dallas Cowboys selecting Mansour Delane, the cornerback out of LSU. Dallas is giving up 250 passing yards per game last year. Worst defense in the league, gave up 30 points to opposing offenses. Worst in the league, right? And this is a pass-happy division, right? You're in the NFC East. You're going up against Jalen Hurts. You're going up against Jaxson Dart. You're going up against Jaden Daniels. I mean, this is a team that has to get better in the secondary. First and foremost, right? And then on top of that, you just lost Trayvon Diggs. You didn't lose him, you cut him. They waived him. And Jerry Jones is now kind of looking at the secondary and saying, oh my gosh, if we really are serious about our defense being priority numero uno for the Cowboys, it has to start with getting a lockdown cornerback. And Savon Ravel, he's a second-round pick last year, pretty good, showing promise in his first year in 2025. But I think if you want a lockdown corner in a really pass-happy division, the Cowboys have got to go after Delane with this pick. Delane's been great all year. Press coverage at LSU. If you look at the quarterback rating of people that are throwing against him, man, he's tough to throw against. It's really, really low. Picks off passes, defenses passes, knocks them down in space. Reads the coverage as well. Great press, boundary corner that I think the Cowboys need. So with that 12th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Dallas Cowboys prioritizing their secondary and going after Mansour Delane, the cornerback out of LSU. With the 13th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Los Angeles Rams selecting Jermon McCoy, the cornerback out of Tennessee. What a great place to be if you're the Rams. You've got a roster that is already capable of winning the Super Bowl this year. Who knows if they win the Super Bowl this year? They might win it all, and Matthew Stafford gets to ride out into the sunset. They could go anywhere with this pick, knowing that they've got a great depth in a lot of positions already in place, including the wide receiver room, including the offensive line room, including most of the defense as a whole. But just ever since trading out Jalen Ramsey a couple years ago, Sean McVay hasn't had that true cornerback one. He's tried to, but he hasn't had the cornerback one that he wants with Jermon McCoy. And of course, there's injury risk there. McCoy had the ACL tear, didn't play a single game this year. Questions will remain on how, if he's still got the true speed, how does he run in the combine, things like this makes sense. But I think the Rams, with less need, he goes after those positional value kind of players, right? He's not going to draft a running back in the first round. He's probably not going to draft a wide receiver in the first round. The Rams haven't actually had a lot of first round picks in recent years. They typically trade those away for players or for future picks like they did last year for the Falcons. They get rewarded here to even be at number 13. I do think that a positional need that they'll see the value in drafting is going to be a cornerback, especially somebody like Jermon McCoy, who showed excellent tape in 2024 before he got injured. Still the questions remain on whether he's going to have the same talent this year. That's why he's even available there at number 13. And if you're the Rams, this is a luxury pick anyway. If he doesn't show exactly the same as he did the previous year, that's okay. You've still got a fantastic roster you can fall back on. But I think the upside with McCoy is too great, and it would be even a better piece to make this elite team even more elite. So with the number 13 pick, I had the Los Angeles Rams selecting Jermon McCoy, the cornerback out of Tennessee. With the 14th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Baltimore Ravens selecting Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State, the middle linebacker out of Ohio State. I'm going to drink a sip of coffee and leave you with this. 0 missed tackles for Sonny Styles in 2025. As a middle linebacker, playing in the Big Ten against elite level competition. This guy is amazing. You don't see statistics like that. They should jump off the page at you, right? He's just so good at reading what the play is going to be, at tackling running backs when they're coming between the tackles, at reading the passing play and shutting it down out there. He used to be a safety that put on some weight, and now he's a middle linebacker. And there's no better middle linebacker, in my opinion, in the class this year. Sonny Styles, not missing any tackles is kind of exactly what the Ravens need. Ravens would love to take an edge rusher right there. Keldrick Falk is already off the board because we don't have any Dante Moore in this draft class. That might be a little bit of a cliffhanger for a future mock draft that I'm going to be putting out soon that does have Dante Moore joining this draft class. But in this situation, with Keldrick Falk already off the board, the Ravens are going to see Sonny Styles right there. And they say, we're jumping on this. We're going to take him at number 14. Going to be a great defensive commander that they need right now as a middle linebacker coming out of Ohio State. With the 15th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, we have our very first trade. The Philadelphia Eagles are sending pick number 22 and both of their third-round picks to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in exchange for pick number 15 to select exactly the player that they want. That player is Caleb Lomu, the left tackle out of Utah, going to the Philadelphia Eagles after they trade up to get to number 15. First and foremost, let's talk about the trade. Howie Roseman is more than willing to trade up if he finds the player that he likes. He does this all the time, right? You see the Eagles always trading up a couple like third or fourth or even fifth round picks just to move up a couple of spots, right? 2 or 3 or 5 spots to get the guy that they want that's still available when they want to do it. Howie Roseman does this all the time. Eagles natural team to trade up in this first round as well. And then also the Buccaneers are more than happy to trade down, right? Jason Licht, the GM at the Buccaneers, likes to trade down. If they don't see their guy and he's not there and available, what do? Well, they say, okay, we'll pick up some more draft picks. The Eagles have traded up in 3 of the past 5 first rounds. The Buccaneers have traded down several times in the past decade in the first round as well. So this is a natural fit for 2 teams that like to facilitate this trade in the first place. It makes sense for the Philadelphia Eagles because Lane Johnson has been struggling with injuries all year. The right tackle, I believe he's 35 years old. This is the last year, I believe, of his contract. He might even just retire and hang it up here. He's got some Super Bowls that he can look at and be very proud of. But when you have injuries to your right tackle for a team that needs the protection for Jalen Hurts and wants to open up the running lanes for Saquon Barkley, you've got to address that, right? And the Eagles have done what they can this year to address that. But Lomu is also a zone blocking offensive tackle out of Utah that would fit this mold very, very well. In fact, kind of perfectly for what the Eagles are wanting to do. And you might say, hey, Simon, why don't the Eagles just wait till 22 to take Lomu? I don't think he's going to be on the board because I think that the Detroit Lions are also going to be looking for a zone blocking tackle right there at number 17. I'm going to snag him right out of their hands. And the Eagles is kind of aggressive, more aggressive than they typically trade to move up 7 spots, but it makes a lot of sense in my mind. The Roseman's going to go to number 15, and the Philadelphia Eagles are going to select Caleb Lomu, shift him from the left to the right to be their starting right tackle, or at least some depth tackle, swing tackle for their offensive line. He's again, Lomu is the left tackle out of Utah. Going to the Eagles at number 15. With the 16th pick, the New York Jets are thrilled to select Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. Holy cow, how is Jordan Tyson even available at number 16? There's so many other mocks I've seen that have Tyson going within the top 10, if not the top 5, to teams that are wide receiver needy, right? The Titans, the Giants, maybe the Browns. I mean, all of these seem like natural spots for Jordan Tyson. But if I'm a team that has got a lot of needs, like all of those are, am I investing my premium pick into a wide receiver, into a skilled position, into a player that missed 40% of his games during the last 2 seasons? You can't avoid this. Yes, certainly a collarbone injury is not the same as a hamstring injury, which are both 2 injuries that Jordan Tyson had. They seem unrelated. They don't seem like these are lingering injuries that are just continue, in eternity for him. But again, missing 40% of the time, right? Even the doctors check off on that. You have to say the pro level is hitting a lot harder than the collegiate level is. There's a significant re-injury risk that you're taking on if you're taking him with a top 10 pick. And I just don't think the Titans, nor the Giants, nor the Cleveland Browns, nor the New Orleans Saints, all teams that might be in the market for Jordan Tyson, are going to take that risk. So Tyson falls down the board. I think the lowest he will possibly go would be the Jets at number 16. If he's available right there, they turn the card in right away, right? A lot of injuries, litany of injuries, all these teams getting scared away, but the Jets are going to just be thrilled to pair him up with whoever's taking snaps under center in 2026. In this case, it's not Dante Moore because I have him sitting out this draft. I'm returning to Oregon for another year. But I think that, the Jets are going to go out there, get a veteran quarterback for Bridge for a year or 2, go after their franchise guy in 2027, and then Jordan Tyson paired with Garrett Wilson, with also a very solid offensive line with 2 young, very capable tackles to protect them. I think Jordan Tyson would very much succeed in this offense. And Aaron Glenn, man, for as bad as the Jets were this year, and as much as they struggled in 2025, things are looking up for them in 2026. I'm kind of excited to see what this offense is able to do, especially if you pull in Jordan Tyson into it. And all the playmaking ability he has. I mean, the talent is there. He can create separation in a phone booth, right? He's a guy that can catch contested catches. He's one that can break down zone coverage. He's got the height, he's got the size, he's got the ability. It's just a injury question, which is why he's even fallen this far in the first place. So with the number 16 pick, I have the New York Jets, compliments of the Indianapolis Colts, which they traded the pick for last year, picking up Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. With the 17th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Detroit Lions selecting Olavide Vega, the left guard out of Penn State. I'm going to call him Vega, which is actually the name he prefers going by. Thank you, Vega, for making this easier for anyone who has to pronounce your name like I do. Apologies for the botching the pronunciation a moment ago there. But Vega is the perfect left guard that the Detroit Lions are looking for, right? They would also like a tackle. We just talked about in the previous pick, or 2 picks ago, that Detroit is also in the market for Caleb Lomu, the left tackle out of Utah. But if they can't get Lomu because he goes to the Eagles, I think the Lions are going to go after Vega to fill in that left-hand side of the line a little bit better. They had Kevin Zeitler He was fantastic for them, but they lost him last year to the Titans. They've had some injury issues here in 2025. We know that the Lions like to run a zone blocking scheme. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the fastest players in the league. You want to open up those lanes. You want to pull your tackles and your guards out to open up the lanes for him. Vega is capable of doing that, and I think they're just going to love him. And I think that 17 is the right place in the draft, for the first guard to come off the board, the first offensive lineman in the interior to come off the board, right there in the middle of the round. Too early to take him earlier than this. But I think that Vega makes sense at number 17 to go to the Detroit Lions at number 17. With the 18th pick of the NFL draft, I have the Minnesota Vikings selecting Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State, a nose tackle right there out of Ohio State, right? This is the guy that's the immovable anchor in the middle of the defensive line. You're not going to move McDonald. Like, he has a one-dimensional game, stuff the run, right? Not a pass rusher, not a real fast guy, but he's probably the most powerful, strongest player on the field at any given time. And if you're the Vikings, they love to invest in the trenches, right? Either in the offensive or the defensive line, but you also see that a lot of their defensive line veterans are aging. Jonathan Allen, 30 years old this year. Javon Hargrave, 32 years old this year. They're going to be a year older when the season starts next year, too. So I think they're going to bring in some youth right there into the middle of the defensive line. You're going up against some really strong offensive line competition in the NFC North, right? You're going up against the offensive line of the Lions and the Bears and the Packers. All of those are elite guys that are hard to block and go up against, and really good running games for the most part as well, too. And so what do you do if you got an opponent that likes to run the ball with a good offensive line? Well, you counteract that with Caden McDonald, who's been fantastic at stuffing the running lanes for Ohio State all year. And again, kind of you know what you're getting with this. I think that you're not going to get a whole lot in pass rush that you might get from other defensive tackles. But if you're looking to run a 3-4, put him right there in the middle of nose tackle. I think that the Vikings have a natural fit here for McDonald, and they draft him at number 18. The Vikings going Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Okay, and now we've reached the playoff lines. We have now reached pick number 19, and there is no more certainty in the draft order. I am not of lineage of Nostradamus. I have no special insight on how the playoffs are going to work out. But I do have a prediction of how I see the offseason going this year, which will then, of course, set the draft order for the 2026 NFL Draft. I am not able to see this graphic right now, but I'm going to display it. I'm going to put it in here in editing. But this is kind of how I see the wild card rounds going, the first round of the playoffs, and then furthermore, how it's going to progress until ultimately I see the Seattle Seahawks beating the Denver Broncos 20-17 in the Super Bowl this year. And all the other interim points between now and then. Again, we are filming this on January the 7th. We have not had a single playoff game yet. These are simply my predictions, and this is Mock Draft 2.0 that you're getting here on the NFL Draft YouTube channel. So take all of this with a grain of salt, knowing that it is subjective, knowing that it is predictive, knowing that none of this is in stone. This is only the order as I see it playing out as we come up on draft day. Disclaimer said, with the 19th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I see the Carolina Panthers selecting Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC, the University of Southern California. Makai Lemon, this is a gift to the Panthers. I understand the rationale that the Panthers need a little bit of help in the defensive front, right? You're going to be people that are already saying, nope, they got to take an edge rusher, just like they did last year with Nick Gordon. I think their defensive front has looked pretty good. Other than the edges, still being young and still getting, needing another year to develop into kind of prime edge rushers. I think that they would like to draft a defensive lineman. But I think if Makai Lemon is right there and you're the Panthers, you cannot not draft him here at number 19, right? Pairing Makai Lemon with Tetairoa McMillan is perfect for Bryce Young, right? Tetairoa McMillan, T-Mac, is this big-bodied receiver that can stretch the field and catch anything you throw it to him. It doesn't cause any penalties either, right? Had one offensive pass interference call all year, and even that one, I saw it happen, was pretty suspect. I was kind of upset with the officials for even calling that in the first place. But he's going to spread out the field. He's going to be your X. You put a speedy slot receiver like Makai Lemon, who's capable of creating a ton of separation and run the routes over the interim, the 8-10 yards of the slant routes for Bryce Young. All of a sudden, you've got a deep ball threat. If Ted is covered sufficiently, you might throw it to him anyway because he probably catches 50-50 of the balls you throw that way anyway. But if he is locked down, now you've got Makai Lemon right there in the seam, right? Running the slant routes, running the shorter routes, from the slot. I think that's a perfect pairing for a team that wants to continue to invest in Bryce Young's development. By the way, the Panthers, everyone was writing them off and saying Bryce was left for dead a couple of years ago. They've been proven wrong. The haters are now silenced with seeing the Panthers making the playoffs, winning the NFC South, shutting out the Buccaneers who had to go home early this year, and now it's the Panthers that are in the playoffs. Really excited to see as they continue to build around Bryce Young what this offense can become, knowing that they've got a good line in place, knowing that they've got a very, very good run game in place. Let's add them another weapon. With number 19, I see the Carolina Panthers selecting Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver in the slot, out of USC. With the 20th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Dallas Cowboys selecting TJ Parker, the edge rusher out of Clemson. First and foremost, thank you, Green Bay Packers. If you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you inherited this pick from the trade with them last year. They made it into the playoffs, which is great, but then they also got eliminated by the Bears, in my opinion, in the playoffs in the first round. So Dallas gets a pretty good draft pick here at number 20. I had the Cowboys selecting Mansour Lane with the cornerback in the 12th pick, and now I think they're going to address the edge rusher for their 4-3 scheme. Asterisk next to that 4-3 scheme, Matt Eberflus is out. He just got fired as defensive coordinator. The Cowboys, as I said earlier in this video, the worst team in the league when it came to defense, gave up 30 points, a game and 250 passing yards a game. I mean, they have to address the secondary first and foremost. And now Dallas, after trading Micah Parsons to the Packers, which is how this pick kind of happened in the first place, and then also Peyton Miller, who they picked up from the Saints but has been injured, and then also Jadeveon Clowney only being on a 1-year rental contract. I mean, you've got to address the edge again. It seems like every year the Cowboys have to address the edge, but they have to. You can't just not put any heat on the opponent's quarterback, especially when you're in the NFC East and you got Jaxson Dart that you're going up against twice a year. You got Jaden Daniels up in the same division. You got Jalen Hurts. This is a pass-happy opponents that you're up against who also have got very good run games for the most part too. And so I think that you got to put some heat on the quarterback here. I think that TJ Parker is a better fit for the scheme, at least if they stick with the 4-3 that they used last year. Donovan Ezeraku, they picked up from Boston College in last year's draft. He's a speedy, nimble, kind of outside linebacker. Not perfect for that 4-3 scheme, but he's a smaller build, 240 pounds, I believe. Good at bending around the edge of the tackles. But I think that if you're the Cowboys, you've already got that. You're not going after Cassius Howell, who would be a replicate, a redundant kind of pick from Ezeraku. I think you're going after TJ Parker. Put your fist in the ground. 4-3 defensive end, lines up, right up there on the line. And I think that's a good fit for what Jerry wants to do. And by the way, with TJ Parker also having the ability to help stuff the run for the Cowboys, we know that if you're an edge rusher and you contribute to stopping the run game, you get bonus gold stars from Jerry Jones. And that's always a plus as well. So at number 20, I have the Dallas Cowboys selecting TJ Parker, the edge rusher out of Clemson. With the 21st pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Los Angeles Chargers selecting Emmanuel Prignon, the left guard out of Oregon. Prignon has been fantastic all year. Interior offensive lineman, he's only given up 1 sack in the last 3 years as a starting left guard for Oregon. Fantastic, right? Protected Dante Moore all year, probably the unsung hero of why the Ducks have done as well as they have. And even the sack that he gave up was here in the playoffs. So really, if you exclude the college football playoff and just look at the regular season for them, he didn't even give up a sack in the last 3 years. And this is kind of exactly what Jim Harbaugh, the last remaining Harbaugh who has a head coaching job currently right now, this is what you need. I mean, Justin Herbert has taken so many hits this year, right? Your offensive line has been banged up, right? You've got Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt that are both on injured reserve right now. And then you've got the guards, which are Zion Johnson and Mekhi Becton, who have been completely ineffective. And so the Chargers, if you want to make a deeper run in the playoffs, knowing that you got a great coach and a great quarterback and a great team, you got to address the interior of the offensive line. I understand the rationale to take a wide receiver here. I think the offensive line is a much bigger priority, and the Chargers want to get an elite interior offensive lineman to take the heat off of Herbert this year. Emmanuel Prignon, fantastic player, fantastic with the Ducks all year. I have at number 21 the LA Chargers selecting Emmanuel Prignon, the left guard out of Oregon. With the number 22 pick in the NFL Draft of 2026, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Cassius Howell, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. A quick disclaimer and a review of what happened. We had Tampa Bay trading down from number 15 to number 22, picking up the Eagles pick and also both of the Eagles' third rounders. Now at 22, I think they're seeing Cassius Howell available, and they say, man, this is the perfect fit for what we need to be doing. Hassan Reddick didn't work out, right? They tried to go out and get him for a one-year deal. The Bucs need some edge rushing support. Reddick did exactly what I expected him to do, which is be unproductive and ineffective for the Bucs line. I don't think they're going to re-sign him again after this one-year rental contract. I think they're going to go to the draft and look for the next edge rusher. And Cassius Howell, a little bit lighter than a lot of the other edges that we had going earlier in this draft, but again, super productive, super good all year for Texas A&M. A guy that can kind of adapt to the scheme that he's playing in, super nimble, super fast, had a great career there with the Aggies. And I think that Todd Bowles running this 3-4 scheme that can be aggressive and confusing from multiple angles, he's going to look for a player like Cassius Howell, who's not super light. He's got a little bit of weight, but he prefers to rely on his speed for getting after the quarterback. I think that Bowles, who I respect really a lot as a defensive-minded head coach, is going to see Howell there and say, yeah, I can line him up in different formations. I can confuse, our opponent's offensive line on what we're actually doing, who's going to go where in the scheme that we're using. I think that Howell is going to be a good fit there, and that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to take Cassius Howell at number 22, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. With the 2026 NFL Draft, the 23rd pick, I have the Buffalo Bills selecting Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington. This is Rome Odunze 2.0, right? This is another Washington big-bodied X receiver going to a team that would love to throw the ball to a sure-handed, reliable X receiver. The Bills have Josh Allen, who has got probably one of the best arms in the league, right up there with Mahomes, in terms of the ability to air it out. And so what do? You give it, you're somebody that's a big body out there on the boundary that's going to run downfield, and if they're matching up against a cornerback, but they're tall and they can catch the pass you throw to him, that's exactly what Josh Allen wants, right? Khalil Shakir was great in the slot for the Bills this year, highly productive. They're going to continue to feed him in this offense in 2026, but I think that you want a deep ball threat, which is exactly what Denzel Boston would offer. This is the right fit for the Bills offense. I think that this is the X receiver they're looking to bring in. Denzel Boston is a beast all year for Washington. He's a good fit. I have the Buffalo Bills losing to the Jaguars in the first round of the wild card. That's how I think they end up at 23. And with that pick, I have the Bills selecting Denzel Boston, the wide receiver out of Washington. With the 24th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have my hometown Houston Texans selecting Jennings Dunker, the right tackle out of Iowa. Again, controversial pick. A lot of people are going to hate this one. People are saying Jennings Dunker is not a first-round talent. I like the fit enough here for the Texans to take him. First of all, let's address the need. The Texans have got an elite defense, probably the best defense in the league. In fact, I can call them the best, not one of. I think they're the best defense in the league. And so you're going after the offensive line with this pick. You want to build out some more protection for CJ Stroud. Give him a little bit more time in the pocket to find his receivers. And the right side of their offensive line has been a void here in 2025. Ed Ingram has struggled at right guard, specifically in pass protection. Finding running lanes, struggling in passing protection. Trent Brown is on a one-year deal. That's a rental deal. You're looking for a right tackle. And we know that the Texans want to run the ball. They've got a good roster of running backs. They're actually going to bring in some more running backs in the offseason this year. And so you want somebody that's going to open up those lanes, right? You want a zone blocking right tackle. And with Ingram struggling and also some injuries in that offensive line too, maybe somebody that could line up on the inside if you need him to as well. We got two guards already off the board. And so I think that Jennings Dunker, who was a right tackle for 3 years at Iowa, a mauler at right tackle, zone blocker, fit the scheme perfectly well, but he could also move inside. He's not the most mobile tackle. I think he might struggle against certain edge rushers that are just going to, be too fast for him to keep up with. I think he's got the build that he could fit into a right guard spot as well. But if you're drafting at number 24 with the Texans, you're drafting Dunker to be the right tackle. And then if it doesn't work out for them, you can still move him inside and address another position need, which is right guard as well. So it's a win-win either way for the Texans on this side. Please leave me a comment. Again, I think this is going to be a controversial pick. I've seen a lot of shade that people don't like Dunker going this early in the first round, but I think with the Texans, it would make a lot of sense. And I have the Texans, again, another controversial pick, especially me being from Houston. I have them losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card round. Most people think that the Texans are just going to torch them and be right there in Aaron Rodgers' face every single play, which is probably going to happen. But I liked the game that the Steelers played against the Ravens last week. And I see them beating the Texans in the final of the 6 wild card losers. And the Texans getting that number 24 pick and picking Jennings Dunker, the right tackle out of Iowa. Okay, so now we've moved on. We're now in the divisional rounds. The wild card rounds are gone. Again, a reminder, the draft order is set by first, who lost, those first 6 teams that lost in the wild card rounds, the first round of the NFL playoffs. And then second priority based on where they lost was the overall regular season record, right? So the team that loses first would then go based on who has the worst record during the regular season. And if there's a tiebreaker there, it's even in a third tranche of who had the easiest strength of schedule. So that's kind of how I came up with the Panthers at 19, the Cowboys at 20, the Chargers at 21, the Philadelphia Eagles really at 22, who traded that pick to the Buccaneers. And then at 23, the Buffalo Bills. And then number 6 was the Houston Texans. So that's the order of the wild card first round losers. Now we're moving on to the divisional matchups. And with the 25th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Casey Concepcion, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M. And by the way, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers losing to the Denver Broncos there in that divisional round. So moving on to the pick itself, the Steelers need somebody other than DK Metcalf to throw to. For those who watched the Ravens game, it was cringe-worthy to see the lack of depth in the wide receiver room. Aaron Rodgers is still impressing me as a quarterback. I mean, the dude is 43 years old out there slinging it, 42 years old, slinging it to wide receivers that are not wide receiver ones, right? You've got him throwing the ball to anybody who can catch it. And he spends 4 days a week. I found this out in the broadcast. He's spending 4 days a week with his team and reviewing the plays that he's going to call against the opponent coming up there. Aaron Rodgers is the perfect perfectionist as a quarterback in this league. I've still been so impressed with what he was doing against the Ravens. And it's going to be real interesting to see how he adapts to this deadly pass rush that's going to be coming at him in the wild card round of the Texans. But I think they're going to get past the Texans, ultimately lose to the Broncos. And Casey Concepcion is just certainly going to be that slot receiver, the safety valve, so to speak, for Aaron Rodgers. Speedy guy, Concepcion, if you watched him with A&M here, he struggled a little bit with drops, but he's a playmaker. He's speedy. He can even return punts if you need him to as well. But I think that Rodgers, if he doesn't get the read that he wants with Metcalf down the field, he's going to dump it off to Concepcion and get the first down and move the chains. And that's kind of what you need if you're the Steelers right now. I don't know what the future holds for Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he's done and he retires and he hangs it up, or he comes back for another year with the Steelers. It certainly worked, in my opinion, for Pittsburgh with Rodgers this year, and it got him into the divisional round of the playoffs. So with that 25th pick, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Casey Concepcion, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M. With the 26th pick in the NFL Draft of 2026, I have the San Francisco 49ers selecting Caden Proctor, the left tackle out of Alabama. Moment of pause as I hear your hate or your delight at this pick of Proctor going to the San Francisco 49ers at 26. Again, I'm being dramatic so I can get another sip of coffee. But the dramatic pause is a beautiful one because Caden Proctor, again, one of those players that it's going to be interesting to see where they land if Dante Moore does not declare for the 2026 draft. I mean, this is a guy that I have a couple different landing places for him. I did not expect to put him with the 49ers here, but I think it makes sense for the 49ers at 26. There's going to be other players that they're going to be targeting instead. I won't get too into that. I'll save that cliffhanger for my other mock draft, which is going to be with Dante Moore available. But in this scenario, at 26, the 49ers are investing a year ahead of need, right? And the 49ers, first of all, played with injuries all year long. All over the roster had injuries. Purdy had injuries, right? Fred Warner had injuries. But important injury was Trent Williams, the left tackle. And even though it was not a season-ending injury for Trent Williams, you still have got to see the importance of having a blindside protector for Brock Purdy, coupled with the fact that Trent Williams, as of today, is already 37 years old and is on the last year of his contract next year. And so Kyle Shanahan feels like a coach that has got job security and can invest a year ahead of the need for this. Knowing there is a need for left tackle, but it's not today. I think Trent Williams comes back again in 2026. But I also think you're gonna want a little bit more offensive line depth. That if you do have these injuries to players like Trent Williams, that you got to have somebody out there and blocking in his absence. You've got a swing tackle for 2026 that can then become your starting left tackle in 2027. And Caden Proctor is a massive man. Like, he played left tackle every single snap that he was there at Alabama, except for the ones where he lined up outside and was catching passes on trick plays. I mean, this is a guy that's a mauler, really, really good in pass protection and average in run block. He's a gap blocking left tackle. He's a massive man. He's 370 pounds, so you can't get through him. He's got pretty good footwork, in my opinion, for being a man of that size. He's not great in zone blocking for opening up running lanes. Why? Because he's 370 pounds. I mean, you don't want a guy that big running all over the offensive line. They're going to get tired by the time the fourth quarter comes around. But I think for a blindside protector for Purdy, yeah, that makes sense to put him out there at left tackle and to take the enormous shoes to fill that is being left by Trent Williams after he retires in 2027. And so Caden Proctor, again, I think he's going to be a development kind of project. He had a great year with Alabama, a great program up against really, really elite level of competition in terms of the edge rushers. He was up against every single snap. I think that translates well to what the 49ers would be looking for. And again, based on how the board plays out in this scenario with Dante Moore not declaring, if Proctor's available there at 26, I'm willing to take the risk if I'm the 49ers. So 26th pick, I have the San Francisco 49ers taking Caden Proctor, the left tackle out of Alabama. With the 27th pick of the NFL draft, and again, we are moving on now. We are now to the 27th pick. This is getting deep into the playoff run. We are now the final team, two of the last final teams in the divisional round. I have the Chicago Bears at number 27, taking Matayo Uiagalelei. Matayo Uiagalelei, the edge rusher for Oregon. Matayo, man, I apologize for the pronunciation of your name, but you are the ideal prototypical edge rusher for the Chicago Bears, right? 6'5", 280, I mean, a massive man, gonna fit perfectly in that 4-3 scheme. We know Dennis Allen, who came from New Orleans Saints head coach, now the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, wants these big, powerful, like Montez Sweat kind of edge rushers for the Bears. Watch their games, man. They're massive human beings, right? These guys are 6'5" plus and 270 pounds. They like the guys that are built in Matayo's kind of build. And I think this makes a lot of sense here. It seems like he was kind of built in the lab for the purpose of being a defensive end in the Bears 4-3. They've been searching for years for a compliment to Montez Sweat there on the front line. This is the chance to actually go out and get it. Offensive line, perfect shape, great shape. Caleb seems like he's doing a lot better this year than he did last year. You got a good run game going on. You got good receiving options. The offense seems like they're pretty set. I don't have any issues with the Bears secondary. I do think they want to add a little bit more juice on this powerful pass rush that they're looking to complete out there. So Matayo Uiagalelei, the edge rusher out of Oregon, going to the Chicago Bears at number 27 after the Bears lose in the divisional round to the LA Rams. And the last divisional loss I have being at number 28, I have the Cleveland Browns, compliments of the Jacksonville Jaguars, selecting Eli Surratt, the wide receiver out of Indiana. Again, this comes compliments of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who really had a great year. This is the pick that they traded to Cleveland Browns, part of the Travis Hunter deal that they made. Jacksonville went deep into the playoffs, even without Travis Hunter. I'm really kind of impressed with not only how far they went this year, but to see what they're going to accomplish in 2026. And 2027 is going to be even more impressive as well. I think that if you're Cleveland here, and you get this pick from the Jags at 28, you look at who you drafted. You got Spencer Fano early in the round. And, you kind of want to put a playmaker there with him, right? But there's been a lot of wide receivers that are already off the board, right? You've already got Carnell Tate going off the board. You've already got Jordan Tyson and Denzel Boston and Kai Lemon and even Casey Concepcion off the board. But I still think, you're willing, with the way that the board looks for you right now, to invest in this highly productive wide receiver that comes from the Indiana Hoosiers. And I think it makes sense, as the ex-receiver for Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy, great player, maybe a little bit redundant with his kind of build that he's got. But Indiana was an explosive offense that was doing difficult things, right? This was not just simply, run a simple route and we'll throw it to you 10 yards down the field. They were doing some good stuff. The offense that Mendoza was able to lead with the Hoosiers, and Surratt kind of being one of his go-to guys out there on the boundary. I mean, this is a player that would adapt to the NFL level of offense. And I think that if you're giving Shedeur a big-bodied and a reliable receiving target, that's a nice win for the Browns, in my opinion. And it's going to be interesting to see, now they've got a new head coach coming in. Stefanski is no longer there. What is going to be the scheme? What is going to be the goals of the offense? A lot of question marks there for what Cleveland's offense is going to look like. But if you've already got, a great tackle that you bring in there at number 6, I think you're going for an offensive playmaker at number 28. So with that 28th pick, I have the Cleveland Browns, compliments of the Jacksonville Jaguars, selecting Eli Surratt, the wide receiver out of Indiana. So now we go into the conference championships. We've gone through a lot of predictions for how the playoffs are going to run, and now we're going to the final 4 teams at the bottom of the first round. And with the 29th pick, I have the Los Angeles Rams selecting Romello Height, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. So first of all, the LA Rams are going to be kind of one of the betting odds favorites to win the Super Bowl. They could win the Super Bowl. In this scenario, I have them losing to the Seattle Superhawks in the conference championship, the NFC Conference Championship. And the Rams have got such a solid roster already in place. We discussed that at number 13 when I had them taking, Jamon McCoy. That doesn't force their hand in any way to take a positional need at the bottom of the round here. This is a luxury pick for them. And so if you're the Rams, what do you do? We know the Rams in the years past don't select skilled positions for the most part in the first round. They select positions of positional value, things like cornerback, or in this case, an edge rusher. And Romello Height, again, a very productive edge rusher out there at Texas Tech. He's 240 pounds, right? He's a pure pass rusher, a guy that's not contributing a whole lot to the run game. But again, if you want to add some depth out there, let Byron Young or Jared Verse sit for a couple of plays or kind of rotate around what the scheme is going to look like. I think that a pure pass rusher like Romello Height would make a lot of sense here for the Rams scheme. So with that 29th pick, I have the Los Angeles Rams, who lose to the Seahawks in the conference championship, selecting Romello Height, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. With the 30th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the New England Patriots selecting Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. First and foremost, this is the Patriots losing to the Denver Broncos. Denver, powerhouse team. I think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl this year. Patriots had a fantastic first year. Can't wait to see what Drake May continues to do. Probably one of the favorites for MVP this year. But I'm just very impressed with what they've done and the roster they've already built and what Mike Vrabel has done with the Patriots, even in year 1. And so you're at the bottom of the round. This is again kind of a more of a luxury best player available kind of pick. There's a lot of options to choose from. I think Kenyon Sadiq, the first tight end off the board here, he's an athletic safety. An athletic safety valve playing tight end that would kind of be perfect in the middle of the field there for Drake May. Hunter Henry had filled that role. I think that Henry is on either the last year or one more year of his contract, getting a little bit older, early 30s now. And I think that Sadiq, with his athleticism and his sure hand reliability, is going to be kind of a good option in the passing game for May if he wants a safety valve to move the chains. Then he's also going to offer some running support too. We know that Travion Henderson, great running back and a good offensive line for the Patriots. A lot of things he can do in this offense, as I think the Patriots are going to continue, based on how the board plays out, to find that best player available, take their offense to yet another level in 2026. And with the 30th pick, I have New England Patriots selecting Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. Okay, almost done. The last 2 picks of the round. The Super Bowl runner-up, Denver Broncos, with the 31st pick of the 2026 draft. I have selecting C.J. Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia. Middle linebacker predominantly, but they can line him up anywhere they need to for Denver in that defensive scheme that they're running. He's playing against high-level competition, obviously, in Georgia. A really good, capable tackler. Doesn't miss any tackles against the run. I think that Denver, already an elite defense, it's just going to make it even better, right? If you're Denver, what do you need right now? You can go after a wide receiver, but you've already got so many receivers off the board. Bo Nix is playing at a very good level. You know, Sean Payton has kind of the offense, I think, in the roster in place. They've got some money they can spend in the offseason, $45 million in cap space that Denver has. They can go out there and invest in players they want. What do you invest in? Well, I think that you just like a dependable run linebacker who can stop the run right there. You know, C.J. Allen was playing middle linebacker, like I said, at Georgia. I think he's going to continue to fit into a really good defensive scheme that the Denver Broncos like to run. So number 31, the Super Bowl runners-up, Denver Broncos. I have selected C.J. Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia. And that brings me to the final pick of the first round. I have the Super Bowl champion, Seattle Seahawks, with the number 32 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, selecting Anthony Hill, the linebacker out of Texas. Hook 'em horns, my Texas Longhorns. My UT alum draws me to a Longhorn at the last pick of the first round. Seattle, again, just a dominant defensive scheme. Mike Macdonald, I mean, what he has built is impressive with Seattle. The Legion of Boom is back, right? I mean, the defensive secondary of the Seahawks is locked down. And what do you give a team that already has all the pieces in place? You could give them more offensive playmakers. Again, another wide receiver wouldn't be the worst thing to help giving Sam Darnold yet another target there on the offense. But I just think that Anthony Hill is just kind of too good of a fit for this versatile Seattle defense. You know, I watched him a lot in Texas. He can line up, you know, at the Mike. He can line up at the Will, the weak linebacker. He can line up at Sam, the strong linebacker. I mean, he's kind of got a bunch of different positions he can play. And knowing the defensive scheme that Seattle likes to use, they like to use a nickel back. So the packages can be confusing. Or you can do a 4-2-5 if you wanted to, or you can line up 3-4, you know, with outside linebackers. However you want to use him, he's versatile enough to be adaptive in this scheme, to kind of be one of those, again, movable chess piece analogies that could fit in a bunch of different places, right there along with Ernest Jones in a terrifying Seattle linebacker room. And so I think he's the right player to fit this defense for Seattle. It's almost scary for teams to have to go up against this defense as it is every week. And then you add another player like Anthony Hill, who's just been fantastic, you know, watching him the last year at college. Going to a team like that's an excess of riches for the Seahawks. But I think that with that 32nd pick, the Super Bowl champions, the Seattle Seahawks are going to take Anthony Hill, the linebacker out of Texas. So there's a recap. Let's take a look, you know, at how I played this first round in the 2026 NFL Draft. Again, the huge disclaimer at the top, there's no Dante Moore in this draft. That changes everything, right? That changes everything, including what the New York Jets are going to do right there at number 2 with Arbel Reese. You know, they go with a defensive player rather than the quarterback that they wanted to draft for their franchise QB. This works their way all the way down the first round. As you see the graphic that I'm showing here, and kind of those top picks heavily skewed and influenced by the positional need and the positional value. You see so many edge rushers and the quarterback right there at the top, and then the right tackles in those first 5 and 6 picks. The only quarterback I have going in the first round is Fernando Mendoza, right there at the top of the round. Again, a reminder that if Dante Moore and Ty Simpson are both going back to school for another year, I don't see there being another first round worthy quarterback in this scenario of the draft. But it kind of influences the rest of the draft, how that goes. Keldrick Falk, Jermon McCoy, Caleb Lomu, Jordan Tyson, Caden McDonald, and Caden Proctor being the players that I could see going to a bunch of different teams throughout the round based on the trades that take place and the teams that are drafting ahead of those players. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you really enjoyed my draft coverage. Once again, my name is Simon Erickson. My day job is picking stocks at 7investing.com. Go check that out if you want a free week trial to see all the premium content that I have in the stock market. But again, this is translatable in so many ways to picking players at the right team and the right fit and the right positional value. I really think that's a translatable kind of using that same part of the brain that translates to the NFL draft. So that's why I'm doing this in the first place. I hope you enjoy my @NFL Draft 2026 YouTube channel, a recap of this draft that we just looked at here, This is January the 7th, 2026. The regular season is over, but the playoffs have not yet begun. I am under the assumption in this mock draft 2.0 scenario that Dante Moore and Ty Simpson are going back to school. And that, of course, influences all of the selections here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this, I'm going to be putting out another mock draft with Dante Moore available. That'll be my third iteration of my mock that I'm going to post in a couple of days here. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to check that one out, or share me your thoughts and your comments. I mean, I think more than anything, I just like kind of putting my ideas and my opinions out there, but then also reading the feedback. I value that so much. When especially if you've got a team that you love or you follow really, really closely, and say, hey, Simon, this is really what we need the most. I'm a diehard New Orleans Saints fan who just loves the process as a whole, and seeing teams rebuilding that struggled in the previous year kind of go and rebuild their franchises. Then all of a sudden you see teams like the Patriots and the Broncos, right there at the top of the league that a couple of years ago a lot of people were writing off altogether. So exciting to see how the draft goes here in late April up in Pittsburgh. Again, please subscribe to the channel. Please leave me comments if you have any. And check out 7investing.com if you want some stock ideas as well. Again, my name is Simon Erickson at NFL Draft 2026. I'll be hitting you up with another mock draft here soon with Dante Moore. Stay safe. Please stay safe out there. Be kind to one another. And I'll see you again here in a week.